Hi everyone, thank you for coming. This talk was for early birds only, and I guess you guys went to the party yesterday but managed to get up early, so thank you for that. My name is Miguel Dinis Lucas. I'm a lawyer here in Portugal. My work is mostly dedicated to rendering advice to startups and emerging companies. And I've been, for the last 3 years, aiding several clients in regulatory aspects pertaining to Web3, blockchain, and crypto assets. So today, I want to talk to you about the risks of owning land in the metaverse, or is virtual real estate real yet? So as some of you may know, if you've rented a house or if you've bought a property, house hunting can be a nightmare, right? Searching for countless properties, visiting them, choosing the right fit for you, signing the promissory deed. If you're not lucky enough to have the cash all in hand, maybe ask for a loan to the bank, get the loan approved, then signing the deed and finally moving in. It's time consuming, and it's when you want to invest in a property, it's sometimes really not efficient. So when I heard about virtual real estate, I thought, man, this is amazing, okay? So you can invest in virtual real estate without having to go through the process of this whole physical property ownership, right? So you can just go to OpenSea, or you can go to another marketplace and buy an NFT of a virtual real estate, and just that's your investment, right? But it's not like that, at least from a legal point of view. So house hunting can be a nightmare, and that's why real estate agents are there to help you. And PwC Hong Kong has bought a land in the metaverse so as to onboard clients to the metaverse themselves as well. So they aid their clients to onboard into this new virtual real estate ecosystem and world. So it might be hard, right? So what exactly does my NFT virtual real estate, what rights does it confer? Does anyone here remember Second Life? Yeah? So it was like this, so the graphics haven't really been better over the years, so for the metaverses that we know, but Second Life was widely popular as a multiplayer game where you could hang out with friends, you could have your own avatar, you could live a virtual life, right? And at that time, the relationship between the user and Linden Research, which was the owner of Second Life, was governed by end-user license agreements, where they basically said, everything in the metaverse is our property, and it's our intellectual property, and you merely have the right to use our platform. And that's what happened. You would use your platform, and everything was fine. But Second Life, especially, decided to depart from that standard, that industry standard of not granting the users any right over the intellectual property. So they became quite famous for protecting the users' rights to ownership. So they said, whatever you have in our metaverse, in our Second Life platform, is yours. Your Linden dollars, your virtual house, this is yours. Nonetheless, they must have consulted with a lawyer that told them, okay, so virtual assets, the concept of ownership is really different. So what you can do is you can license what you have, or you can transfer the title or the intellectual property rights over the assets, but you cannot own virtual property. So what they did is they changed their user agreements, and they just said, okay, we license and we have no property whatsoever in Second Life. And that made some people very, very, very angry. So Evans v. Linden Research was a lawsuit that was filed, a class action lawsuit actually, that was filed by 5 plaintiffs that had virtual real estate and virtual house, Linden dollars, and they wanted to be compensated because Second Life just changed the user agreements, and out of nowhere, they conferred rights and they took them away from Evans and the other 4 plaintiffs. So this actually led to a settlement agreement where Evans and the other plaintiffs were compensated in relation to the virtual property that they had in Second Life. So yeah, so Linden Research kind of admitted, okay, we owe you something. But at that time, no one could have predicted NFTs, right? So in an NFT, if you have, for example, an NFT virtual land and a virtual museum where you display your virtual art, this is all yours, right? Yeah, not quite. So when you have, for example, a painting, this is a Picasso painting, you have two kinds of ownership. You have the ownership over the painting itself, and you have the intellectual property right, which, if it's not assigned, is the creator itself. So you may have the painting, but you do not have the right to monetize the art itself. So you cannot create derivative works, you cannot publicly display it, you have no commercial use over the art itself. You have ownership right over the painting. And this is because it's tangible property, it's physical. In a virtual world, you don't have physical property rights, so you don't have ownership rights. Because in a virtual world, everything is information, everything is zeros and O's. And information, as you know, is free-flowing. The fact that we are here today in Lisbon is not something that someone can own. But you have virtual property rights over virtual assets. And this is super important. That's why startups are usually IP rich, because that's the sole property that they have over their software or over their virtual assets. So ownership in a virtual world is super different from ownership in a physical world. And NFTs, what they do legally is they represent a mere certificate of authenticity. So what they do is, what they say is, this NFT was minted by X and it now is on Y's wallet. So that's what they do. So, and what about virtual real estate? Does that apply still? So when you're trying to use your virtual real estate for commercial purpose, for example, if you buy this land, was on a sandbox, was for $3.5 million, and you want to make T-shirts because you're a fan of Steve Aoki and Snoop Dogg, and you like that tweet signal there, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to make a lot of T-shirts, I'm going to sell them, and I'm going to be rich. Yeah, you can't. Even if you buy this NFT, you cannot use this image, and for what is worth and for what is standard in the industry, you cannot use the visuals or the graphics of the metaverse itself. What you have mostly is the right to publish onto that land. You do not have ownership over land as you have in a physical world. You have the right to publish. But so what about intellectual property, right? So if in a virtual world, if virtual assets are the only ownership, kind of ownership, but the only rights that you have over virtual assets are intellectual property, who has them? The standard practice in the industry is the metaverse companies have it. And the end users are still only allowed to use, even if they buy NFTs of virtual land. So, looking at the sandbox, and I'm speaking about the sandbox, but I could be speaking about Decentral and then all the other metaverses here. So, what most of you don't know, or most of you may not know, is your relationship with all these metaverses is governed by terms of use that govern your access, your use, and your interaction with the platform itself. So what they say is basically everything that is in the metaverse, all images, text, information, data, this is all what they call TSP content, or the sandbox content. And this is a very good definition to have later on. So what you can do in our platform is you can purchase lands parcels, and you can publish onto lands. This is clear. Nonetheless, they say, okay, everything you see in the metaverse, everything that we call TSB content, which is all information, all data, all visuals, all audio, everything is owned by us and our licensors. And we retain all rights whatsoever, ownership rights that we may have, intellectual property rights, everything, unless we assign them to you. But do they? The use of the services does not grant you any ownership whatsoever, and you're granted only a license, because with intellectual property, you can either grant the right, assign the right, the title over the right, or you can grant powers of that right. You can exercise certain powers. So what you can do is exercise the power to use someone else's right. So you have a limited, non-exclusive, non-sublicensable, and non-transferable right to use the services. It's Web 2 all over, right? So if Web 3 is about ownership, what do we actually have in the metaverse? Yeah, so what they say and what this basically means is you cannot do anything with the virtual real estate. You cannot reproduce, distribute, adapt. So if you wanted to create, for example, if you bought like a virtual land near a super cool lake and a cool mountain and you want to make, you want to monetize it, you should be allowed, right? If we're in Web3, the concept of ownership is inherited into Web3, but you cannot. Without their written permission, you cannot. And who asks for written permission from Sandbox to do some t-shirts, right? So, and you cannot, for example, create derivative works. So, for example, here's a derivative work of Mona Lisa with a mask. So, you can't alter anything of the virtual asset that you have. And any commercial exploitation, this is strictly prohibited. Also, and this is where it gets really interesting from my point of view, since I'm a lawyer, but you, by using the services, you're granting them a license to use and to display and to do whatever they want with what you publish onto the land. So just think about this for a minute. What you buy is the right to publish onto that land, but whatever you publish, you're granting them a license for them to use however they see fit. But you cannot use the virtual real estate that you just bought or that you thought you bought, right? And this is perpetual, royalty-free. They won't pay you a dime. It's irrevocable. You cannot, never just tell them you do not have the right anymore. And they can use, reproduce, publicly display, adapt, distribute. They can do whatever they want. And also, and this is very big for companies, they can use your name and trademarks just for the fact that you publish onto the land. Doesn't seem fair, right? So what I wanted to ask you about, this is just a food for thought, but I really want you guys to have this question once you leave this stage. So, should we have new laws for this new epoch? So, should we grant the intellectual property rights from the beginning? So, should an NFT holder have the intellectual property rights over, for example, this virtual real estate from the moment it buys the virtual real estate? Or should the industry change? Because we have laws that protect, because we have consumers who can be granted the intellectual property rights, title can be transferred, and it can be sub-licensable as well. So I think that from my point of view, the legislators and the regulators are very far behind of understanding this industry. So they don't understand the concept of NFTs. They don't really understand what it is. They know it's a kind of certificate of authenticity, but they're not quite sure. So I wouldn't put in their hands to regulate this. So what would I do? I would say to the industry, like, be better. For example, Bored Ape Yacht Club. What they do is they're not afraid to say, you own the NFT. So this is the terms of use of Bored Ape Yacht Club. And this is not standard in the industry. So what they're telling is, they're not afraid to say you own the NFT. And we see how problematic that is with Second Life. When you say this, you can't go back. So they say you own the NFT, you own the art, and we've seen there's no actual ownership, but just saying this is a statement, right? They say you can do whatever you want. You can display it in your living room, so you can have it as a personal use. You can display in your office. You can just distribute royalty-free. We'll grant you a license. But you can also monetize it. You can monetize your ape. You can create derivative works. You can do whatever you want with your ape. You can sub-license it. You can use copy display. You can sell. They even say you can sell merchandise products and sell t-shirts with your ape. And this is fair, right? If you're buying an NFT and if Web3 is all about ownership, you should have some kind of ownership over your virtual property. And NFTs is the closest that we can get, at least so far. So I believe same laws are fit. The industry just has to get better. And I hope this meta ownership improves over time. Thank you. Any questions? Yeah, please. Sorry, yeah, mic. So everyone can hear, yeah. Sorry, yeah. Yeah.
Excellent presentation. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. I didn't know this about Sandbox. We bought the land there, so we are totally effed with all the laws. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry.
No
I'm
problem.
always the bearer of bad news as a
it's
lawyer,
good.
but yeah, I hate it. But
That's good. It's
I'm
better
sorry.
to know. We were going to develop a lot of stuff over there, actually, but so that will give us some reason to think about it. The other question I have is actually the only question I have is that is it the same situation with Decentraland, Somnium Space, you name it? I don't know the other ones.
So this is the industry standard, and it was the industry standard in Web 2, and we've seen that Second Life, since it departed from it, was very successful. But then it changed to the industry standard as well. So Decentraland is the same. I don't know if Somnium is the same, but I'm guessing it is as well. So I think the industry should get better and should grant these rights, because we're in a stage and in an epoch which this is as close as we can get to ownership, right? And the legal concept of ownership in a virtual world may have to change, and we have to change our understanding of ownership. So I'm just saying, yeah, grant these rights to the users. It's only fair.
do you know of any other lands that it's like Bored Ape Yacht Club, or you don't have any? No.
Yeah, not sure. I know that Bored Ape, but as you know, Bored Ape Yacht Club is not virtual real estate, so they just but I'm not sure if there's any other platform that grants rights that are similar, for example, for commercial use as Bored Ape grants to the NFT holders.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi. I know that the governance of Sandbox is quite different from Decentraland. Decentraland being run by the DAO, all the landowners and token holders govern that ecosystem. Different what Sandbox does. I have deployed several projects in Decentraland with different monetizing schemes.
Yeah.
And no one from Decentraland ever came and told me you should be doing this or that.
Yeah.
I set up shop, sell or do whatever, and then maybe if I have a pop-up shop, I dismantle and then life goes on.
Yeah.
But I have total freedom to do whatever I want. What kind of enforceability Decentraland has being, I'm talking about Decentraland because it's just quite different from how Sandbox is set up.
Yeah.
But how would they enforce whatever these laws are when it comes to?
That's a super interesting question,
You know
and I mean when it comes to DAOs, everything is very very new and very novel. So we don't really quite have like a lot of certainty over the answers, like over who has the right to enforce certain rights that, for example, the members or the contributors of the DAO would have the right to. My guess is each member could enforce these rights. So if you're entering into an agreement with a group of people, which is what a DAO is, because you're not incorporated, you're not a legal entity, so there's not a legal entity or a company that can enforce these rights. There's a group of people, and each one of them can enforce the rights. So I would say each one of the DAO's members can enforce the rights that Decentraland grants to the DAO.
But I am a member of the DAO, so me as a landowner, I am in charge of enforcing the rules that apply to me being a landowner. And
it's cool, right?
So I mean, Sandbox and Decentraland, they all can one day decide that, hey, whatever IP rights that Bored Ape or whatever are applied,
they have that right. Yeah.
Then at some point, if I see any kind of problematic issue or whatever with the ecosystem I'm developing, it's in my advantage to advocate all of this to the future owners. And the gentleman sitting there, I'm also one of the owners in Sandbox, and I'm wondering, I saw all the other corporations, even Snoop Dogg. I think he has something in mind.
Yeah,
and him moving from Web 2 to Web 3, his label, his everything. I mean,
and I've not had access.
He made this pivot for a reason. He's ditching all of this Web 2 shit to come to this, knowing that he's going to own. But now you're saying that, hey, Snoopy, you're not actually owning your villa and your content. So
this is totally right for end users.
I think there might be another angle to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
So this is totally right. What I said is right for end users. The thing is, and don't want to get into that topic because I'm not sure. But because I've not had access to the contracts, for example, that corporations enter into with the sandbox. So they might be different in terms of intellectual property. So they might grant intellectual property to these corporations, but that would also be super unfair to the end users who don't have any intellectual property right over their virtual land. So I don't want to go through that path because I'm not sure, and I don't want to create this doubt. But yeah, this is right for end users. So this is a standard. You can deviate from the standard with a certain agreement. Yeah, sorry, I think we're over.
Sorry guys, we're running out of time. That was super interesting. Go talk to Miguel.
Thank you. Bye. Dylan, can we take a picture of yeah, guys, can we take a picture of with all of you? Is that okay? Yeah.